Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about feeding your axolotl. When axolotls first hatch, they don't need to be fed for 24 hours because they're still consuming their egg sac. After the first 24 hours, they need a constant supply of live food. Live food can be anything from microworms, it can be brine shrimp, and it can be Daphne. I opted to use Daphne simply because they are freshwater and will not die in where I'm going to feed them. The two most common you'll see is Daphne and brine shrimp. Some people have a huge success in culturing Daphne. Other one people just can't seem to get it. You can also use brine shrimp. With brine shrimp, you usually will buy the eggs and then you'll hatch them and you'll feed the eggs you hatched, because when brine shrimp get older, they're a little bit too big yet for newly hatched axolotls. As you can see right here behind me, this is actually my culture of Daphne that I'm just now starting. They've already started to multiply. Daphne, after 3 days, can already breed and have more. After about 3 to 4 weeks, when they start developing their back legs, they'll most commonly will start to feed off of prepared foods like frozen or pellets. When they get to that stage, I will generally feed them bloodworms. Bloodworms aren't the most nutritious. I use them along with pellets. I haven't had a problem using bloodworms. I generally use bloodworms until they're big enough for earthworms. I don't like. You can also use chopped up earthworms. I think that just kind of makes a little bit of a mess. They generally eat all the bloodworms I give them, and then I haven't had any problems with them being malnourished or anything like that. So while I feed them pellets, after that, when they're big enough, I'll start feeding them earthworms, and I'll wean them off of bloodworms. I don't like always using bloodworms. Because after a while it's just not enough. Bloodworms are kind of small to use. When they get to that stage, I start using earthworms. I actually have a little bin right here. I tried to mostly mimic the setting in my garden. It's just soil with a dry layer so they don't try to escape or anything, because they'll feel it dry and then they'll go back down. I try to feed them grass, these type stuff. I feed lettuce and spinach. I find that they seem to digest that fairly quickly. See, I just had one for this. I ordered about 1,000 of them. It's a lot cheaper ordering them in bulk rather than buying them at like a Walmart, the whole thing. I think 1,000 of them cost me $40, and to buy 30 pack it's like $3. It's like $3. So buying 300 of them from Walmart would cost almost the equivalent of buying 1,000 of them from here. And they breed fairly quickly once you first start getting them. You can see they're not too bad off in here. When I notice that they are not growing as fast and are starting to get a little bit fatter, I will switch them to mostly pellets and a little bit of earthworms. And when axolotls are still growing, you want to feed them about once a day. You can do a little bit less if you think you're feeding too much and you notice them getting fatter. But once you notice that they're pretty much stopped growing and they're getting fatter, then feed about 3 to 4 times a week, since axolotls are in colder water, which means they'll digest it slower. So feed about 3-4 times a day, 3-4 times a week. And that's about all you need for feeding. There's a lot of other things you can feed axolotls. One thing that I see most common that I wouldn't recommend is people feeding beef heart. I don't like using beef heart. It's very fatty. I've never personally used it. Beef heart is very, since it's fatty, and I like to try to keep natural as I can. You don't see axolotls hunting cows in the wild. I wouldn't imagine that cows are a general part of their diet. There's also types of cockroaches that feed. I don't feed them that. I know that there's a type of cockroach you can feed and culture that's really high in nutrients and is actually really good for them. I just opt to use earthworms. They're so easy and they're just as nutritious. And pellets, because they can come as, you get to see exactly what's in them. Speaking of pellets, you also want to try the one that has a higher amount of protein. I would say at least 40% and up, and a lower fat concentration. The current pellets that I'm using have a protein of 44% and only 10% fat. I like it. You can use cichlid pellets. Since axolotls are carnivores, and so are the larger cichlids are carnivores, they tend to have about like the same requirements for nutrients wise. So I try to find large cichlid pellets. And that's about what you need to know for feeding axolotls. So if you learned something new, subscribe and tell your friends. Thanks.